Hello, I'm Stephanie Princess zu Löwenstein, and right now we are at our home in Laudenbach, close to Klein Heubach, where our winery and also our forestry and our real estate offices are located. Our family is first time known in 1240. And at that time they were Bavarian princes and moved to the Löwenstein area, which is in southwest Germany. And they had to change the name because of probably not right marriage. In these days we would laugh about it, but so they changed their name from the Prince of Bavaria to the Prince of Löwenstein. After the area where they were building their castle. Over the years, Löwenstein moved around quite a lot, what was also very traditional, that they don't stay at one place, but travel a lot and have a lot of places where they also had their castles. That was from Belgium to Austria to Czechoslovakia to Germany. During the Middle Ages, they stayed more and more at Wertheim because at that time there was a 30 Years' War and the two brothers were fighting together in the war. Two Löwenstein brothers, one was the oldest and he lived at Wertheim. The other one has just married a Belgian princess and changed his name to Löwenstein-Rochefort, because the princess came from Rochefort, and he became a Catholic. And from then, the family has two trouts, one Catholic, one Protestant. And in 1711, the prince, and at that time he was a count, became from the Empire Habsburg, he became the prince title because he introduced a tax-paying system to Milano, to Milan, Italy. And then he had enough money to build our castle in Klein Heubach, where also the winery is placed beside. And we bought this home 2002 for our little family. And Klein Heubach is a very special place because it was chosen since the weather was extremely well at that time at the mine close to Miltenberg, so that the family has chosen this place for the castle. But at that time they also have been the government of their prince area. So it had to have place for 100 officers, for a little military group, and for stables, and for stuff for the household. So it had to be a big place, and Klein Heubach has over 100 rooms and was built or finished in 1735. And the winery and the brewery belonged to the castle, but the brewery was sold in the last century. And the winery is still successful in 3 German wine areas, Franconia, Rheingau and Baden. Actually all aristocratic people after the 30 Years' War, 100 years after the 30 Years' War, became rich by their organization, by very good climate situation, by new contacts, and so most Baroque castles came from this time. So the most families who have built Baroque castle did it almost at the same time, a bit later than France did the same. So Klein Heubach, the family Löwenstein has chosen at that time most famous architect. He was an architect from Versailles. His name was Remy de la Fosse, and he did the planning and he started the building, but he died during that time, and his assistant started to finish the project on his own. And yes, we still today think it's enormous what they did at that time. The roof is almost like a ship, just turned around, and if you stand in the roof, you really have the feeling to be in the Arche Nor, because it's like a big hall. And beyond the representative rooms, 7 are also very important at that time, because they all gave space for meetings and also for balls and parties and for official invitations. And it was interesting because at that time, of course, you had the chandelier, the candles, and they had to be lighted without, it was not elegant to see the ladders and then the people to light it. So it was always lighted, the candles were always lighted in one room, and then the whole society, the guests, moved from one room to another room during the night, during the day, when it was dark. And the most representative room is the Marmorsaal. And at that time, people were very curious about the world. Most of them couldn't travel, but they got stories from those who traveled. So it was well known, 1735, that there is Africa, there is America, and there is Asia and Europe. So these 4 continents are built up in the salary and present the most important and most powerful people of the 4 continents. In the castle are not so many meubles or furniture or pictures left, because after the Second World War a lot of people took away things to burn that because it was very cold winter, or to earn money or to whatever. So the castle was pretty empty after the Second World War. But the 2 most important pictures, one from the prince who got the prince title from Habsburg, is at the stairways up. His name is Maximilian Karl, and his family is vis-a-vis with his 13 sisters and 14 sisters and brothers, and his mother and father. And one part of the house is a family chapel, and until after the Second World War it was the only Catholic church in the area, so because most people in that area were Protestants. So this little chapel for the Catholic community was of course important for the family that was Catholic, and also for the Catholic community. Inside it was totally Baroque decorated, but in the end of the 19th century the prince and his wife decided to give the artist Steinle the option, or ask them to do new fresques over the Baroque fresque. And his fresques are still there, and they call it the style, this pretty naive style. It's more 2-dimensional instead of 3-dimensional from the Baroque time. They call it Nazienza style, and you see pictures from the Bible, especially from the Mother Maria, Holy Maria, and you see parts of the Old Bible and of the New Bible. And the statues all have to do with family members, Sancta Anna, Sancta Aloysius, Sancta Karl and Joseph. And these names are also very often in the prince family taken as names. And you see a big picture of the Holy Nicodemus, and the youngest prince in our family is Nicodemus. The dogs are Simba and Baloo, and they are now 4 years old. And their mother is a very famous dog, that's Finse from the Viking company. And Finse got eight little whelps, 2018. And it was expected that there are only 5, but then she tricked and has 8 little dogs. They are today all over the world, and Baloo and Simba came to us. Today, Löwenstein is a private family company, but in former times it was the government for the area. And 1919, when the aristocratic families lost totally their power, it was in Germany, it was organized that they will go to private companies. And so our company group now has still parts from the old structures. So we have the forestry, the real estate, but also the winery as our main parts of the company. And forestry probably is a most important part. And the Löwenstein always has been very professional in forestry in the area here in the Spessart, but also in the Odenwald and in Baden-Württemberg. And it's quite a challenge in this time, because the climate change is a new partner we have to deal with. So we have water mills, we have windmills, we have solar systems, and we of course use also wood for energy. We have visitors from the cruise lines from Viking, and that's always very exciting and very wonderful to meet people from all over the world. And if they want, they can taste wild boar sausage and wild boar ham. And it's probably the only place where they can taste this because it's quite seldom that the winery also has a forestry and also has wild boar, the meat by the hunter of the family and also of the company. And I think it's wonderful to provide wine and wild boar ham and sausage. The winery has one enormous spot, that is the Homburger Kalmut, and this wine spot, this vineyard, was probably the first time used by the Roman, who came 200 after Christ to go to Germania and enlarge their Roman Empire. We know about that because we found plants that are typical from south of the Alps, and they were organized like a little pharmacy. So probably the Roman came and had the pharmacy over our wine spot. And our wine spot, the Homburger Kalmut, the vineyard, is very special because it's like a mirror at the vine. So it's 60 degrees Celsius in the summer and around 0 in the winter. And this is an optimum for the wine grapes, but also the stone is very special. It's a red bunt stone, we say, and a bit of limestone up. So this mixture of the stone make it very fructable and mineralic. And this is the main important spot. Then there we have a spot at the Rheingau, which in the morning, if you have the fog in the Rheingau, our spot will always be over the fog. So it will always have the light and the sun. And those wines are very full of fruit and full of lemon and grapefruit, and also a bit sweeter. But we cultivate them to be dry, of course, and it's nice to have this partner, to have the Kalmut, the mineralic Kalmut, and the fruit in the Rheingau wines. And then we come to Baden, a very area with a high tradition of wines, and those wines are Normally they get a bit more warmness because in Baden the climate is a bit more Mediterranean, but the wines have the character of a bit of a mixture of fruit and mineralic taste, and also it's quite a different quality, but it's also nice to have this three different wine types. Our winery and also our wine is not only famous, but it's of course famous by the famous people who drink our wines. So Grace Kelly, of course, was visiting our castle and drinking our wine, like the Spanish queen, the Danish queen, all queens actually, European queens. But in former times also Gosi and the King of Versailles drank our wine, and we still have some bills where the wine went all over the world, but also to France, where you would think that they have their own special wine, what they have. But he preferred the Kalmund wine. Luckily, the family is not the wine producer themselves, like a lot of wine families, but we produce the wine by casting the best winemakers we can imagine or we can meet. And we're very happy to have a winemaker from South Africa. He's German, but he moved to South Africa to study, but also to get experience of international wines and winemaking in South Africa. And with this experience, we are very happy to have Peter Arnold at our place now as a chief winemaker. And he is enormous gifted for our understanding to take the best out of our vineyards and out of our wines, and we are very successful with him.
Hello, I'm Peter Arnold. I'm the chief of the wine, or technical chief here of the wine estate. I'm responsible for the winemaking. I'm responsible for what goes on outside in the vineyards, but I have a nice crowd of staff which helps me, because alone you can't do this, and you need people outside in the vineyards to manage it, to work it, and you have people here in the cellar to help and to get in, especially in harvesting times, these rush hours here over, because here is hands-on and lots of work, and then in the year it can become a little bit quieter. I started my apprenticeship here in Franconia, and this was my first touch to the vineyards. The Homburger Kalmund, very unique, steep terraced vineyard between Homburg and Marktheidenfeld on the River Main. Yeah, if you look at Franconia itself, it starts in the west by Aschaffenburg, and it goes up into the Steigerwald beyond Würzburg. And here we have these, for us especially, the three soil types, which is sandstone, which is the limestone, and then the Keuper. Also the Franconia itself is very multiple in its characters. If you take a Silvaner from down here, from the Main Valley, and you go up towards Würzburg, you will see a total difference in character. And Franconia itself stands for very typical wines, especially here the Silvaners, and in a certain way are typical for the German expectation. We are unique, we are different to Rheingau, to Württemberg, to the Rhine-Hessen wines, and this makes us proud. And our main aim is here to push the Silvaner, as it is a variety not known as Chardonnay or Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc. or then the red varieties, Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot. But it is also, maybe I can mention a little bit the technical thing here, through the climate change, through the warm-up, is Silvaner a variety which can survive here still a while if it should become warmer, that we have to go further north with our wine regions, that we one day become maybe the Spain of Europe, and Spain, I don't know what they can then produce, for example. We restored this cellar here into the new, these stables in the new cellar in 2009 to 2010. And since then we are here, and it is a new technique, helpfully to work with easier ways, and also not to forget old tradition partly brought in. This is also my philosophy. Not everything what is new is just better, but to combine, to see, to use and use actually the advantages from both sides, the experience from older days and the new experience and techniques from nowadays, and to combine this, to make these unique wines, not to create something different, just to get the vineyard into the bottle. That's the main aim here, really, to get this, what we have outside, into the bottle in a very simple, nice way. And I think the wines show also the results, that they are unique and fantastic. And this makes it also so interesting every year to harvest again, to start again, and then have changes every year, because each year is different grown, different climate, etc. So this makes it not boring. So here we taste the wine. It's a Silvaner out of the Kalmud, and you can see, I can smell, say it this way, nice minerality. It's a matured wine, it's a 2020, so it's already 2 years old, but it is just a nice thing here with the Kalmud wines. They need their time to develop their secondary flavors, their aromas, and it's a typical Silvaner, nice with a tiny bit of yellow fruit flavors, and then a minerality. Very clean, still very young in its character, and then we will see what it will taste. Very nice, full-bodied, is nearly on the 13% alcohol, so it's quite a mouthfeel in itself, and long aftertaste. Nice acidity, not too high, but still there, as Silvaner has not a high acidity, not as acidity as high as the Riesling, for example. But it's pleasant. I try to get a nice roundness, a nice harmony in the wine. This is my aim, and still you can drink it in 2, 3, 4 years' time. Very nice. I get also a little bit of herbal flavors. Here you can, as I mentioned it earlier on, the minerality what you get here from the wine. This is again comes from the sandstone, from the limestone. You can't say just it's sandstone, because over the centuries it mixes itself in, and you have different, as I explained also, different niches in the vineyards itself, where the Silvaner brings different characters. So now we will have a red wine. Thank you very much. What a pleasure. We have here Pinot Noir. You can see it already on the color. It is not an intense, colorful, deep Tempranillo or Cabernet Sauvignon, but this is part of Pinot Noir. Here a 2017 Gutswein from the Rheingau, and we have here just the different color spectrum. In Pinot is more on the yellow side, whereby the Merlot, Tempranillo are rather on a violet color spectrum side. Therefore this deep. We have also Pinot Noirs which are much more in color, but this is a little bit here the classic way. I like it. Spicy, very spicy. It makes it so interesting to have the Pinot Noir from the Rheingau. We have also Pinot Noir here next to our Kalmut in the Lengtforder Oberrot, also sandstone. And these are two totally different types of Pinot. Here I like the spiciness, what you get in the nose. A little bit of cherry. But I like this spiciness on this Pinot. It's for me very, very nice. And then pleasant, smooth, acidity is there supporting, but it's not powerful. We need it only as a little cloth underneath. And then the tannins are softened and very nice. A comfortable wine, easy to drink, not complicated. A little bit of red meat, yeah, is possible. And in the process of making here red wine, just to do a few infos, how do we get to the color? The color of these varieties we have here is in the cells of the skin, and in working the normal process of destalking, of then getting the mash prepared for red wine production. We break a few cells so we get a little bit of color in. And if I'm early and draw off the fresh juice, we will have a rosé. We have only a little bit of color. But here for the red wine, we will do then a mash fermentation. Also everything, the skin, everything is done in a big mash. And we ferment here till all the natural sugar is fermented through into alcohol. And also then all the cells are broken open by the alcohol, by the stirring or mixing, depending on what system you use. And we have all the color in these young red wine. And then we press off this mash wine mixture, very gentle. And we have our young wine, which then goes into barrels and or not, depending on what type of wine you want to do, easy drinking, light, and we go normally in barrels and mature here up to 18 months, sometimes a little bit longer, and get at the end a wine like this, spicy, nice flavors of tannins, of cherries, of berries, very pleasant and nice and smooth. A point still to the aging of the red wines here, in our case the Pinot Noir, in barrels, in barriques. French oak, we have also still a few American oak barrels, which I inherited and take over, but I believe in wood that I have a rather multiple choice of different coopers, because in my experience each cooper has his own little touch, what the wood is, where it comes from, which way it is toasted, which way it is kept, etc. So we get nuances, and this is what I like, to have different nuances and combine them later on together. Also 225 liters plus minus is a barrel. We have also some 500 liter barrels and 1,200 liter vats, which we also keep. I try some new wood, some old wood. It must just fit in. I don't like to chew the wood. I want a support of the wood, of the barrel as a container, and to combine this at the end to gain ripeness. A maturation in an oak barrel is a different thing to a tank cellar, to a tank or to a tank or glass container or concrete container tank, as we had in South Africa, many at its time when I was down there. So we have a maturation here up to 18 months, sometimes a little bit longer, and it makes the wines smooth, it gives them some stability, it brings them together that they can also age them very long. I'm very proud to be here, to have this opportunity. We have fantastic vineyards, we have the fantastic conditions here to make this wine. And yes, you need a lot of experience. This is what I gain now. I'm more than 30 years now, or nearly 40 years in this business. And yes, I studied, I learned it, etc. But a lot of things is that you learn from vintage to vintage, from area to area. As I mentioned earlier, I was in South Africa, but I can't come here and say, now I make here South African wine. But I can use certain, I say maybe tricks, but certain ways I can use from South Africa, from Spain. In England I was rather in the selling, but also making a little bit of wine to make sparkling wine. So this is a combination of having the learned, the knowledge, yes, but then also the experience. And I think the longer I'm in it, this is more the experience and the feeling. It is not just going by schedule and scheme. It is, you have to make decisions at the time when you taste the wine. Do I go this way or do I go that way? I think to come to us, it's a possibility, it's the opportunity, it's the possibility. It's the have to be, to see the tradition, to see the individual wines, to see what's happening here. And yes, it is, it's not old make, it is new, but it has history. And this history is not forgotten and left by side, it is included, as I mentioned earlier, we want the old and the new, but it is so versatile here, what you can have with two different wine regions, different wine types. So we are very varietal in the whole thing of vineyards, of varieties, of making, of the process. And this is worthwhile coming, seeing, tasting, looking, asking. I can't give you to everything an answer maybe, but we always want to give you the information in wine, because the more you know about wine, the better wines you want to drink. It's a very simple thing.
If you visit Kleinheubach, the Castle Kleinheubach and the winery, you will experience the flair, the Prince flair, because every corner tells stories about the former times, about the modern times, about our working, our understanding of nature products, our understanding of plants, our thinking about the climate change and renewable energy. It is obvious that the company deals with this, and all visitors are very much invited to experience our company, to experience our wonderful wines, which are really, we are grateful, but that's of course also a present from heaven. You can't organize to have these spots and to have this development of this product. But maybe then it's understandable also that we have this beautiful chapel and for our family praise, but also to offer to everyone to pray and to visit and to imagine why in former times the family has decorated the chapel with the statues, with these pictures, and why they kept it in such a wonderful way.